Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
And welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
I'm Asani Cayetano. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. It is a
Tuesday morning. Oh, Monday, Tuesday.
Yes.
Back to work, Marlene.
That's right. Christmas is over. And we know this is usually a tough day to get going. Actually, I know a lot of people usually take off this time in between because they anticipate that the recovery will be hard.
For us who are back at work, today it's a short week.
Yes.
Given the fact that yesterday was commemorated as what would have been Boxing Day on Sunday. So we get off on Friday in anticipation of New Year's Day on Saturday. But guess what? We come right back to work Monday because there won't be any holiday given for that one.
That's right. I think a lot of people came to that realization this weekend because they were anticipating a long weekend ahead. I noted it when the final press release for holidays came out that quite a number of the holidays that do land on a Saturday will be celebrated on that day, and you won't get that Monday in lieu of, which I know a lot of people appreciate. So that's the first one this weekend when New Year's Day lands on September. We have Sunday, as per usual. I'm back to work again on Monday.
Yeah. So we're back to work today. There's a lot to catch up on.
That's
and we have a full show ahead.
That is right. And I got to say, I'm really interested to find out about the weather. I was telling you, I'm not sure if it's going to rain or, you know, it's like the sky hasn't made up its mind as yet.
Yesterday afternoon, it kind of got gray for a bit there. It drizzled, well, at least in Belize City. I'm not speaking for anywhere else. As far as Belize City is concerned, that's what happened. But for the most part, the weather held up, and it was pretty nice. I mean, on Christmas Day and Boxing Day itself, the weather, you know, was pretty solid.
So how was your Christmas weekend?
Interesting, to say the least.
Okay.
So Friday and Saturday, I kind of went overboard. And so Sunday and yesterday was strictly rehab.
Resting.
Right? Yeah, I had to kind of, you know, get back into my frame of mind and say, you know what? I've celebrated both days in advance, so I just need to take the other 2 days and relax.
Well, you know, that's the good part. My niece was asking me, what is Boxing Day anyway? So don't pressure yourself with that question. Just enjoy it. Nonetheless, it's the day we get afterwards. But it seems to be, you know, that a lot of people got together and enjoyed their Christmas day together. You know, the restrictions compared to last year were much more manageable because you did have a midnight curfew, which meant you could spend some extra time with your family as well.
Yeah. On Sunday, Marlene, I had the opportunity to kind of move around the city in the evening, and you should have seen the entertainment strip. Everywhere was virtually booked out.
Wow.
Yeah. People are out and about. I guess it's because on Christmas Day itself, most of these establishments were closed.
Yeah.
Right? So on Sunday, they were reopened and people were at the park, people were at all of those establishments along the strip. It was interesting, I mean, to see that many people out and about.
And especially the park.
Yeah.
The park is very
the
crowded.
Lights with
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, the lights with?
Oh yeah, no, it's they have installed some fluorescent lights on the palm trees at BTL Park, different colors. Yeah. But it complements the light show that's out there. It's very beautiful.
I was gonna say I love that part of the Christmas tradition where the day after Christmas all the kids take out their new toys to the park so that they can whether it's a scooter or a bike or you know the little electronic trucks. I don't know what else is happening at the moment, but those three I know. And they're all out there enjoying the toys with the family. And that's, you know, that's part of the joy of giving, that you get to see them enjoy it.
Definitely.
So we do hope that you had a fantastic Christmas weekend. And it is time, though, for us to get back to work. So we're going to get moving into our show, and that means it's time for Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Vision comes from within and shows us how to navigate the realms of thought, feeling, and emotion. Sight is the ability to see the physical world, while vision is the gift of seeing beyond it. Sight enables us to take the physical world in so we can participate in it with knowledge. It brings us pleasure through our eyes, which perceive the colors and shapes of all the myriad expressions of nature and human beings. One of the reasons many meditation instructors advise sitting with the eyes closed, it is because we automatically become more in touch with our inner world when we're not distracted by the outer world. It is in this state that vision becomes our mode of seeing. Vision comes from within and shows us how to navigate the realms of thought, feeling, and emotion. As we age, even those of us with perfect eyesight will generally lose some of our acuity, but this loss is usually replaced with inner vision. We call upon intuition and feel our way along a path that ultimately carries us beyond the realm we can see with our eyes and into the land of spirit.
This eye-opener for me speaks to introspect.
Yeah.
Right? While, as it says, sight allows us to be able to see what is in front of us and what is around us, and vision allows us to be able to see beyond it, looking within speaks to being introspective. And for instance, like the eye-opener says meditation, but I don't meditate, so I'll use another example. Mm-hmm. When you pray with your eyes closed, mm-hmm. right, you're also able to look within, especially if you're not reciting a prayer that is already in existence, but you're speaking freely from the heart and from the soul. It's also a way of being able to look within yourself, yeah. right? And that too allows you to be able to see beyond a particular situation or beyond what's just in front of you, right? But it's easy to kind of confuse the three, mm-hmm. sight, vision, and introspect, right? But I think introspect comes from the soul. So that is from within oneself and being able to radiate that and look out beyond what is simply before you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I think it's interesting. I think if you think of whether it's the prayer or a meditation or some mm-hmm. other moment that you take to close your eyes and just allow the outer world to fade out, it's interesting because automatically all your other senses are heightened. How many times do you hear a creak in the floor when you're lying down in bed with your eyes closed? Things you perhaps would have never paid attention to. Mm-hmm. So we are far more aware of sounds around us. But I think what this talks about with having that vision is not necessarily to still be listening to the outer world, mm-hmm. but allow yourself to tap into whatever you hear or feel on the inside. Yeah. And it's a lot harder. I think you were saying that. It's not so much that you just close your eyes and suddenly you have a level of awareness. It means you have to be able to have an openness mm-hmm. To experience whatever you're feeling within. Yeah. And it is a practice that can come with meditation and that can come with just giving yourself that time and space to tune in.
Yep.
Definitely worthwhile. And or eye-opener for this morning, which we hope will help you to get that extra boost to get your day started. And of course, from the eye-opener to our weather, to find out exactly what we can expect for today, we have our forecast provided by Crystal Rosales.
Morning. Drier conditions to set in later today. The 24-hour forecast. Sunny with some cloudy spells today and clear to partly cloudy tonight. Showers will be isolated. High temperatures for today will be 86 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 89 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 76 degrees Fahrenheit in the mountains. Low temperatures for tonight will be 80 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 72 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 63 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills. Winds over the open sea will be from the east to southeast at 10 to 20 knots, and sea conditions will be moderate. Low tides occur at 11 o'clock this morning and then 12:19 tomorrow morning. High tides at 5:08 this evening and then 6:29 tomorrow morning. The moon will set at 1:02 this afternoon and then rise at 1:54 tomorrow morning. Sunrise is at 6:21 this morning and sunset at 5:27 this evening. The extended forecast. Generally fair conditions with little to no rainfall is expected for Wednesday and Wednesday night. And this has been this morning's weather report from the National Meteorological Service.
So drier conditions to be expected.
That's right. And that's today good. The showers should only be isolated. So, you know, the sky seems to have a decision as to what it's going to pan out to be. Yeah. But of course, it is time for us to get moving into the show and focus on some of the big news that's coming out from the weekend and what we look forward to in the week ahead. So let's shift gears into Eye on the News.
So there has been some developments in terms of what is taking place with the COVID-19 pandemic. Earlier, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, which is the agency in the United States that provides guidance in respect of communicable diseases and what have you. In this case, it's at the forefront of the COVID-19 pandemic. They have released recommendations reducing the number of days that infected persons are quarantined and isolated for from 10 to 5 days. And along with that comes a relaxation, the suggestion, I should say, of the relaxation of the mask wearing during that period of time. What I want to do to get a little bit more in detail is to read from the latest media statement from the CDC. It goes as follows. Given what we currently know about COVID-19 and the Omicron variant, CDC is shortening the recommended time for isolation from 10 days for people with COVID-19 to 5 days if asymptomatic, followed by 5 days of wearing a mask when around others. The change is motivated by science demonstrating that the majority of SARS-CoV-2 transmission occurs early in the course of illness, generally in the first 1 or 2 days prior to onset of symptoms and 2 to 3 days after. Therefore, people who test positive should isolate for 5 days, and if asymptomatic at that time, they may leave isolation if they can continue to mask for 5 days to minimize the risk of infecting others. So there's an additional recommendation here from the CDC. It says here, CDC is updating the recommended quarantine period for those exposed to COVID-19. For people who are unvaccinated or are more than 6 months out from their second mRNA dose, or more than 2 months after the J&J vaccine and not yet boosted. CDC now recommends quarantine for 5 days followed by strict mask use for an additional 5 days. Alternatively, if a 5-day quarantine is not feasible, it is imperative that an exposed person wear a well-fitting mask at all times when around others for 10 days after exposure. Now, the reason why I am bringing this up, Marlene, is because while the CDC, much like the World Health Organization, provides the kind of guidance and the recommendations that we need in terms of the scientific aspect of it, we'd like to see how, if at all, this translates to our local situation here in Belize, where the Ministry of Health and Wellness also looks to these organizations for the scientific information that guides how it makes its decision on a national scale. So we look at that in the context of what has also come to our attention anecdotally, that there have been several cases of Omicron detected in Belize. Now, we'll go back to what the Prime Minister mentioned sometime last week, where the Omicron variant is a matter of an eventuality as opposed to something that is not going to happen or not going to be detected in Belize. Much like what the other variants have been, including Delta. It's only a matter of time before it makes its way to Belize, and then we'll see the effects of it on the persons who become infected. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about this morning.
No, it's really interesting. I think it's big news when we saw the recommendation coming out from CDC. And just to be clear, I do know that, in fact, one of the things we hear very often from more health officials is that they rely predominantly on recommendations from the World Health Organization. The CDC offers guidance for the US, although some people do use their guidance in other countries. We've seen before where the WHO and CDC don't necessarily see eye to eye on issues. One very clearly was regarding masks use for vaccinated persons. The WHO recommended it, CDC not so much, and that was early on. But I think what it allows for, and one of the explanations I saw in an interview in the international press, was that it's a matter of learning to live with the disease.
Yes.
In other words, they're saying, you know, we're constantly going to see new variants, and we have to manage ways as to how we can keep everything going. One of the things that was kind of the fallout as a result of this massive spread of Omicron so rapidly in the United States was that there were thousands of cancellations of flights over the Christmas weekend. And a big part of that was because staff members for the airlines were getting infected or exposed. And so they have this long period of isolation, whether based on the fact that they did test positive or that they did have exposure pending testing confirmation. And so you don't have enough workers, you can't keep things going. We've all felt that. Somebody comes in close contact. I know you had that. You have these days where you have to wait, just trying to figure out whether or not you do or don't have it. So this is really going to be a game changer. I think all eyes are on the WHO to see how they, if they will pick up very similar recommendations. And what they're saying too in terms of the transmissibility seems to be indicating that there's better science now on what we do know about COVID-19, that the transmissibility really takes place 2 to 3 days before you start to show symptoms and 2 to 3 days after.
I think what is also welcome news is the fact that last week it was reported that several major pharmaceutical companies in the United States have also gotten FDA clearance to proceed with medication, if I may, at home, for at-home use for persons who are suffering from COVID-19, and these are in pill forms or what have you. So that too, it's only a matter of time before we were able to adapt some of those medications into our own system here in Belize to see how that works for us as well.
You know, looking forward, I think we're all looking at what the next year of the pandemic will mean. There are things, like you pointed out, medication that you will be able to take at home to prevent severe COVID. And also looking, I mean, some countries are talking about a fourth booster. That's also an interesting conversation that's taking place there. But when it comes to Omicron, and I think that's perhaps the issue that we'll be dealing with very early into the next year. As you said, the Prime Minister said it, the Minister of Health said it. It's not a matter of if, it's when. We're probably going to start to detect this variant in the country. And we know the gene sequencing is taking place, so it's a matter of getting a report. But the question is, how do you respond? And how a first world country can respond is different from how we can respond.
Indeed.
Because when you look at a large number of people being infected at the same time, and there is a small percentage of persons who will be hospitalized, our healthcare system can get overwhelmed very quickly.
As we've seen before.
As we have seen, and there are consequences that come with that. So I think that's always going to be the unique challenge that we have, knowing how many people we can treat at one time. So yes, a lot of people may have it and have mild or no symptoms, but for those who do end up in the hospital, how many can we actually accommodate? And that's still a question that I know gets posed all the time. And not just accommodate, because as we spoke with nurses and healthcare workers, it's beds, but then it's human resources.
And that's where the strain often comes in terms of having the number of people on staff who are able to respond and treat with those who are ill with COVID. All right, so that's the first topic. The other one, I'd like to segue now to the opening of the sugar crop. It began yesterday. This is after a week's delay. You would recall that the stakeholders in the sugar industry have been at odds with each other for quite some time with respect to various issues surrounding the opening of this year's crop. And so while it commenced yesterday, it wasn't without incident. So that there was an altercation that took place in Orange Walk involving cane farmers. Now, whether this is previews of what's to come or what's to be expected in terms of this seemingly unsettled situation, we're yet to see. But that's what we know happened yesterday. We're going to find out later on in the day what led to that and who were the individuals that were involved in that particular incident. Right? But it's just worth mentioning that we are aware that there was a scuffle that took place yesterday that came along with the opening of the sugar crop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it definitely, I'm happy to see that the parties were able to come to an agreement to allow for the season to start.
Yeah.
Because we know there are major implications when it comes to having a delay in the start of the crop, it running into the rainy season. And of course, they need to get the ball moving. But the altercation yesterday, I think, was concerning for people. We know how we have seen before where things can get very heated amongst the stakeholders there. So thankfully, it looks like it was calmed down, and hopefully they can be able to prevent it from happening again. And it isn't a rift that will continue through to the rest of the season.
Yeah. While we do acknowledge that the sugar crop opened in earnest yesterday, the backdrop is that there's still going to be ongoing negotiations between the cane farmers and the miller.
Yeah.
And there will be some oversight provided by the powers that be, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's an ongoing thing. We hope that they're able to work out the matter amicably so that everyone involved is able to walk away, you know, with something mutually agreed upon.
Well, I think it's going to be a tough negotiation. From what we've heard from both sides so far, they seem to have firm positions. But what I'm happy to see is that the crop season isn't being held hostage. So they'll have to hammer out those details and get to a point of compromise. But it's not going to be at the cost of delaying or slowing down the crop season. So I think that's a positive move. Maturity on both sides to recognize that the issue of getting the season going has far-reaching implications, and so to get that going, and they're going to work out their agreement on the side.
Yeah. So our final item for the Iona News this morning, we went into the extended weekend reporting of an unfortunate incident down on the peninsula, right, between Placencia and St. Bite on Christmas Eve, in the small hours of Christmas Eve, where Namid Mesh was fatally stabbed in what appeared to have been a domestic situation. Now, before we get to the arrest of the alleged perpetrator, what is most alarming, aside from the fact that this young man lost his life at 23 years old, is the fact that when the woman went to the police station to seek assistance from the officers who were supposed to have been on duty that night, she went all the way there only to find that no one was at the police station. And the thinking is that perhaps, or maybe not perhaps, but the fact that an officer had to have been there could have prevented this incident from happening. Well, at this point, that is what we would say could have, would have, should have.
Yeah.
What the police department has launched, as we mentioned on Friday, is an investigation as to what accounts for the whereabouts of those officers who were absent from that post on Thursday night, right? And that now against the backdrop that Mr. Tremino, the alleged perpetrator, has been taken into custody. There he is, arrested and charged for the murder of Namid Mesh. It's rather unfortunate. That's a damper that happened right before Christmas, and I know how both families or all parties involved must feel about this incident.
Yeah. You know, I thought it was heartbreaking news to happen just before Christmas for the family that lost their loved ones. But you're right. I think there's a bigger issue here about response. And while there's been no allegation of domestic abuse, this is an issue that is tied to a romantic relationship, a prior romantic relationship, and clearly some jealousy involved there. I think it goes back to some of the conversations we had during 16 Days of Activism, where very often it's very hard for women to step forward to make reports against either the current partner or ex-partner when they feel threatened in any way. And so for them, for this person to be able to go to the police and not have the support there is concerning. And I think that it's also something that we can't just look at it for the murder case. It could have been not as fatal, but it could have had other consequences. So I think it also brings back some of the issues that we talked about during the 16 Days of Activism about having adequate support for women who are placed in dangerous situations.
So that rounds out our Eye on the News for this morning. More details of these stories will come up at 6 o'clock this evening. And of course, you can either catch it live on 5 or you can stream it via social media. That's Facebook or YouTube. That does it for the Eye on the News.
And with that, we're going to get moving into our show for this morning.
We have with us Senator Elena Smith. She is the president of the Belize National Teachers Union. We've mentioned earlier last week as well that come January, there will be the reintroduction of the hybrid learning. And so while the Ministry of Education had put that forward, we will be getting from her the BNTU's position on the reopening and any other matters related to hybrid learning.
All right, so that's going to be our primary conversation for this morning. And then this week, I know a lot of us are going to be taking time to reflect as we prepare to head into a new year. And we have joining us a psychotherapist who's going to be talking to us about how to let go some of the stuff from the past and prepare us for a better year ahead. Very interested to find out what her advice is going to be. That's going to be the second part of our show. We're going to take that break, but before we do, we have a birthday shout out, and we are saying happy birthday to
Selene Lopez. There she is. Happy birthday, Selene.
All right, Selene, enjoy your day. That comes from all of us here at Channel 5, and open your eyes. We're going to take that break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the restarting of school on January 10th. We're going to have the Teachers Union's perspective in a few, so stay tuned.
We have been a partner with SMART for over 10 plus years. We have a full SMART plan we use as our major driver for our business. We have a service that rolls over in that if you call one and it is busy, it rolls over to the next line. So once you call us, you can get us at any time. Before we got this SMART service, we were paying upwards of nearly $2,000 in phone bills. Since we've had our SMART service, we pay an average of about $600. So we've had tremendous saving, more than 50%. For the businesses, if you want to save money, switch to SMART because it is far more cost effective and the service is excellent.
SMART continues to be innovative in bringing new technology and meaningful savings during these challenging times to businesses across Belize. Sign up for our VoIP technology or broadband packages and save more.
It's almost lunchtime and Alice is getting hungry and forgot to bring cash. She remembers that eCash now has a geolocation feature in which she can easily view the eCash merchants near her, especially restaurants. Her co-workers also ask her to order food for them.
Chicken chow mein, please, and a Coke.
The merchant sends her the payment link. She taps confirm, and within a few minutes, her food is delivered. Alice then views her transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made. Then taps the split the bill button where she selects the unevenly option and moves the bar to the desired amount per person. The request is then sent to her friends. Her colleagues accept the requests and are ready to enjoy their meals. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash make Alice's life a whole lot easier.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. As we mentioned prior to our commercial break, the conversation we're going to embark upon first of all is one with the president of the BNTU as we get ready to prepare for the reopening of schools later in January. Good morning, Senator Smith.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Doing good.
All right, so I'm not sure if at this point you guys are anticipating this with some kind of excitement, because I know that we've been down this road several times before and it's a false start. So where do we begin from in terms of this news when it was broken to the country?
Well, as you may realize, we will have some teachers who are gung-ho about returning. They have been that way for quite some time now. And then we have those who are concerned. And so we did not do a survey this time around, to find out what our teachers' perspective in terms of returning, because for the most part, we did have teachers going back, even if it was just to go to school on certain days. And so, they have been back and forth for a while now. The change now is having students around them. What is going to be 2 days per week, what is going to be half day, however that's going to be, they will be having students around if their school has been given the green light to have children back. And so there are mixed feelings as it relates to the safety, and not just the safety, but how is it that they are going to be operating in terms of keeping their children and themselves safe during this time. You know that there has to be a lot of cleaning, concerns regarding how those supplies will be coming in, what they have to spend out of pocket if there's none provided for them. So those are little concerns that we have been getting all along in terms of going back to school.
You know what comes to mind immediately? And this is an observation that I made earlier when this announcement was initially made. So you have, for now, students ages 11 and up who are vaccinated. Perhaps some are fully vaccinated and are, for all intents and purposes, easier to deal with in an environment where you yourself as the educator is also vaccinated. But then you also have the younger population of students, those from 5 to 11 who are not, who are going to be, for argument's sake, in the same school environment. How does that dynamic work? That's just one of the observations that I made when this statement or this announcement came forward.
Correct, and that has always been a concern of our teachers, as well as parents coming into the school compound, because you will have parents now bringing these young children, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and not all of them may be vaccinated. And so how do we address the matter of those students and those parents who are coming into contact with our teachers on a daily basis, other students, and can possibly, spread COVID to those students and our teachers. So that has been a concern. We raised the matter with the ministry, and we had asked them whether there's a possibility that schools can put in place certain mechanisms to say to parents, if you're not vaccinated, you can't enter the school compound. Just so that you are able to protect your teachers and protect your students, because you don't want that people are in and out of the school compound and they're not vaccinated. And those are persons who may be going to the market, maybe going to the stores, maybe out and about, and they come in contact with our teachers who can get ill and our students. So that has been a concern. And the ministry has said to us, those are matters that the management will have to address in terms of keeping their environment safe for the students and the teachers. So I am sure that some schools would be requiring vaccination. Some of them might have other things in place to say, well, you know what, you can't go beyond this point. As they had prepared before, they might continue with some of those same things put in place.
So overall, what I hear from you is that there isn't any sense of, I guess the word is, you aren't against the reopening of school in hybrid form come January 10th, collectively as a union.
Well, our teachers have never been against reopening, I think that has been something that was misunderstood. The concern was the danger that they could be in, the matter of keeping the children safe, the matter of being able to properly sanitize their classrooms, at the end of every session. Those were the concerns that teachers had in terms of going back to the classroom. As well, when we look at our classroom spaces, we know that we don't have large classrooms. And so having a class of 35, 40 children in a class like that, and you have to space them out 3 feet apart minimum, then how do you fit those? And then you can't fit them, so you have to split them in half. So some will come on one day and some will come on the other days, if that's what's going to happen. So we have to look at teacher burnout as well. And so if we're having our teachers then, going, doing these extra things, if you will, then how much can they take? As it is, working from home, you have to prepare lesson plans, you have to do lessons for online, you have to do lessons for packages, prepare packages, you have to be behind parents and students to send them back, bring them back in. So it has been a stressful time for a lot of our teachers in terms of it's something new. We are unable to reach our children the way we would want to reach them. We can't work with them the way we would want to work with them. And so that alone has been stressful. And now coming back now and having to have these other issues that you have to deal with. How do I do this and how do I get them and how do I continue to work with them and how do I go back and bring them up to... So a lot of concerns. But I think this has shown us, Marlene and Sunny, that we do have a lot of teachers who really and truly care about the profession. And sometimes it irks you to hear people say, oh, they're only there for the pay. What pay? I mean, consider the salary of a teacher and all that you have to do with that salary in terms of assisting your children, preparing your classrooms, and the amount of work that you have to do. It can never, I cannot see a teacher being a teacher just because, well, I need to get paid. With the work that we do, I can't see it. And so our teachers have been going above and beyond. For the most part, most of them. We do have a few in every profession, who slack. And we keep saying to them, listen, if you know that you have been one of those, do your best to improve. Do some reflection over this holiday season. And then come January, do your best to improve. on what you were weak in the last time.
Senator Smith, the last time you were asked about an incident that took place in San Pedro with a teacher who was using very abusive language on online classes. And it was a very divisive issue. Right. There were majority of people clearly called it out for the damage that she could cause to her students, and others were a bit more empathetic, saying, you have no idea the frustration. What was the consequences faced? What were the consequences faced for that? Are you aware? And what are your thoughts in terms of what that says about how the online aspect may be going?
I think a lot of people missed an important part in that video that was shown, because we are so quick to look at the negative. Obviously, a person who doesn't care wouldn't be behaving in that manner. So if I were a teacher who didn't care, if you bring the work, you bring it. If you not bring it out of your business, you want to stay there. This teacher wasn't that kind of teacher. This teacher was concerned that they were not paying attention, they were not, participating, they were not doing their work. And so there was a level of care from this teacher. I'll bet the teacher didn't respond to that appropriately. It was obvious that she cared about her students and she wanted to ensure that those students were doing what they should be doing. That being said, we said to her that you were wrong in your approach. And so as a union, we could not support the approach that you took. While we understand, all that is going on, and we understand everything is that you were trying to achieve, it wasn't the best way to do so. Yeah. And so we were just informed, I think it was Thursday, that Wednesday or Thursday, that the investigation was carried, and the teacher was not, or is not going to be fired, as many people want. And we have to understand that the rules, there are certain consequences for certain actions within the rules. And so the investigations did not lead to this being something that has always been happening. And so for that reason then, she was given a second chance. She was given certain things that she had to do as a teacher, to show that she's going to be improving and she's not going to be going that way anymore. And so she has to suffer those consequences for her actions.
But not fired.
But not fired. No, I mean, again, when you do a crime, whatever you are being given as your punishment should fit that crime. And so this did not warrant termination. I think we can understand that.
There's a certain proportionality between the offense and the measure being taken to correct it.
Correct.
Okay, fair enough. But there is a certain degree of professionalism that is expected from anyone who is in a space where they're employed or they're employing someone else, right? And so that in much the same way you wouldn't talk to your kids using a certain language, then it's also expected that a teacher in a certain setting, because something like this could have happened in a physical classroom where you have students who are not paying attention or not submitting their assignments or whatever the case may be, but it doesn't qualify in any way the teacher to use or to talk down to the student in that manner. And I think while I do appreciate what you've said, that perhaps a sliver of an opportunity was missed when we overlooked the fact that perhaps she was indeed caring, but what we saw and what we heard kind of rubbed everybody the wrong way.
Yeah, but see, oftentimes we behave as if though we are perfect people, and we don't make mistakes. And a teacher should be a mini god, and you must never make a mistake as a teacher, because the lens that you look to at a teacher is different from what you look to at a politician, for example. I mean, my goodness, look at how these people behave in the house.
Yeah.
And we have nothing to say about them, because that is okay. They mean women, they do all sorts of things, and that is okay. But the moment a teacher makes a mistake, has become so frustrated that the teacher lashes out on her students. That's like the worst crime somebody can ever do. And I understand wanting to hold teachers as professionals, because we are professionals. And so I understand that sentiment. But I think we have to also understand too that we are humans. The teacher made a mistake. The teacher apologized to her students. She did what she had to do to ensure that students knew that, listen, this is not me. You know me, and this is not me. And I'm sorry for what I did. I really and truly didn't mean it. It was just,
she probably lost
caught
it
up
in
a
moment.
Because of all that was happening, and I know that you are smart children and you're not listening to me. So she was caught up in that moment. Yeah. But upon having said that to her students, she realized, you know what, I did something wrong. And she apologized to them. Yeah. One of the students said it was in the same class that she apologized to them. And so the teacher realized that I did something wrong. Let me apologize to those who I hurt. And so I believe that while we want our teachers to be as professional as we can, we cannot be looking at them through one lens and looking at the rest of the population through another lens. We have to be fair across the board. Yeah. And as I said, while we have said that we are not condoning her behavior, we have said that to her, we said it publicly, we understand. But as a professional, you have to find a way of being able to address those things and not let it get the better of you.
Yeah. I use that as an example so we don't dwell on it for too long, because you said something really important. You said a part of the investigation, I guess by the Teacher Services Commission,
the management has to do investigation.
Investigated the incident, and one of the key findings was that this was out of character for this teacher. So it goes to show the level of frustration that your teachers are feeling in general. When a good teacher does something that is publicly exposed, so we know, we don't know what others are feeling or doing as well.
Correct.
How do you, I mean, what's the plan on being able to assess how they feel going back into the classroom and having the load of teaching with still the risk of COVID and preparing packages or online classes at the same time?
Well, from our end, Marlene, we have been trying our best to provide our teachers with some mental health sessions, you know, so that they can have just a slight, idea of how they can coping mechanisms for when they return with all of the stress that they'll be going through. And I must say that the ministry also has put forth on its TLI a set of videos that our teachers can view to help them again, to be able to cope. So we have had teachers who, during this pandemic, have really lost it. I mean, literally lost it. And you wonder, wow, I just spoke to Marlene just 2 minutes ago, and she was quite happy, and then suddenly Marlene just took a turn for the, It's like, and so we have seen that, we have heard of those stories from our teachers, and it's not an easy thing to go through. And imagine having to learn to do online teaching that you never did before, one. Yeah. Two, some of our teachers, the 10% that they lost would have been their take-home pay. Because by the time you pay your rent and all your other bills and your loans and everything, some of our teachers go home with $100 in their pocket. And to realize, oh, you know what, that $100 I have lost, that I don't have it anymore. My spouse has lost his job or is not working as much as he used to work before. Yeah. All of the stress of those kinds of things add to the workload of school, and all of those things combined.
I think by and large, the education system has taken the worst hit. Yeah. While there was sufficient space and room for economic recovery, some of what, if not a lot of what has been lost in the education system is ultimately difficult to recover. You're looking at a situation where you have a higher dropout rate, arguably, this time around than in normal times, so to speak. Yeah. And you're looking at the fatigue of the educator in a setting where he or she is not necessarily trained adequately in the online space of administering a lecture. So it's baptism by fire, right? You have to, I think about older teachers, for instance, who are near retirement, who never a day were around a laptop and a Zoom session to be able to deliver a lesson. But now they are forced to be able to come computer literate and be able to still do the grading, do everything else that comes along with teaching.
And it's not just those teachers who are near retiring, We also have some middle-aged teachers who, as you said, have not been using a computer much, except to go on, maybe type your lessons, and that's about it. But for you to now be able to maneuver through these platforms, in a way that your children are meaningfully engaged in a lesson. That, I mean, that's if I have to go and do that right now, it will take me some time to learn how to maneuver through those things because I have not been using it.
It's not a part of the skill set.
After hundreds of Zoom interviews since the pandemic, there's still a lot of adults who can't get the hang of Zoom.
Thank you.
So, and they're professionals because they're usually guests on the show. But I take that point. I think that that's a valid issue that perhaps we haven't fleshed out so much. But, you know, there's one thing that keeps nagging at me. We had the conversation with the CEO from the Ministry of Education. Now having you here, it seems that there's an agreement to really give hybrid a try, get children back into classroom in some shape or form. My question is parents and their buy-in. Whether or not they will send their children back to school, whether or not they will send their children back to school physically, whether or not they will send their children back to school at all. Because parents have been a very key part. They've always been a partner, but this time they really had a big role during the pandemic. And it was good and bad in some cases. I heard stories from teachers that parents are logging in for children and monitoring how the teachers teach or WhatsApping all hours of the night. You have parents who feel that they're the ones who are doing the instructional teaching for the children, even though they have no background in how to teach. So they have a level of frustration as well. What do you think, from what you've heard so far, would be the level of response from parents at this point?
It's going to be just as mixed as our teachers. Because, as you rightly said, some parents are now frustrated. Listen to me, I can't do this no more, you need to go to school. That has been one of the most
they tell you every time they see you on the street, right?
You know, time for school open. When the school open, I tired of my picnic. And some of them might not mean it literally that way, but you know, I think one of the things that we have learned, I hope we have learned, and I hope we have gone back to that point where our teachers have the respect that they deserve. Because, you know, once upon a time, teachers were well respected, and we've lost it a bit, you know. For whatever reason, we don't see that respect being given to teachers as it used to be in the past. And so I think, for the most part now, we have recognized the work that teachers do, how hard it is to be a teacher, I hope, and the importance of partnership with parents and teachers and school. And so seeing parents not having to teach their children and trying to figure out, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? It gives them a sense of what the teachers go through. And you only have one child that you're dealing with. I have 30, 35 in my class. So imagine I have 35 of your child in my class, and you expect me to be perfect in my class, and I must do everything to the best of my ability, and you have one child and you can't cope with that one child. So it shows our parents a glimpse of what happens in the classroom. And so they are frustrated, our teachers are frustrated, and a lot of them prefer to have their children continuing online classes for a while.
Can I share with you a testimony as a parent? So I have an 11-year-old daughter, right? She's an A student. She's self-disciplined in terms of being able to carry out all of her work online and what have you. And it's just so happened that the school that she's attending was already transitioning to online in part prior to the pandemic. Now, while she has done exceptionally academically, as a parent, my concern is the lack of social interaction with other kids her age, right? Because basically what I'm looking at is an 11-year-old who is on a machine all day, every day. The idea of being on a playground and ramping with other kids, the idea of perhaps doing certain activities together in a physical sense is no longer there. The problem is, while I fully understand that, and I acknowledge that as a concern, it is equally concerning to me that if she goes back to school, she will be directly exposed to perhaps someone who is not vaccinated, or even if at all everybody is vaccinated, she's still directly exposed to COVID. And so I think it's something a lot of people grapple with, the social aspect of the child's development, and of course, the exposure that they would be put in against the fact that we're saying, well, it's time for us to accept that COVID is here to stay and it's inevitable. Right. How do you look at something like that?
Well, I think that's easier said than done, though. I mean, you know, to say it's here, of course, we know it's here. We don't know how long it's going to be here. But to say to a parent, listen, whether you like it or not, this is the life now, so send your child to school. As you said, parents are concerned. They are concerned for the safety of their children, especially for those parents who have children who are sickly, if you will. You know, that's a bigger concern. I have a 17-year-old who has not been out of the house since, 2 years now? And when I say that, all he does is, you know, maybe go to the store to buy something.
And comes back home.
Yeah, I would say to him, you know, let's go to the farm or let's go. No, he prefers to stay at home. And so now he has been on the computer now every day for the last, 2 years, 2.5 years, I don't know for however long. And so there's no other child around to play with him, one. We don't send him to the neighbor's house to play, you know, he's not on the street, that kind of thing. So it's even worse for him. He's just locked up in the house. So I understand that our children need to socialize, you know. That is how they interact. That's how they grow. That's how they play. But if you are a parent who has a child who is easier or who easily gets ill, then you will have that concern. And we can't fault our parents for having that concern. We have to be able to understand them and to work with them in terms of whether it is that they want to remain at home, whether they want, you know, to return to school sometimes or maybe try it out first. We have to work with them. What we have to understand, though, that if we are having, you know, all of these different, so what I'm looking for, choices, then the workload on the teacher and the school becomes more. And we have to understand that. And so I hope we don't expect that our teachers would be 100% with your child online, with the child in the class, with packages. You know, there has to be consideration for all of those choices that we want to have as parents. I've had a person, I think it's a parent, you know, who sent us a message on our Facebook to find out from us which school will be going fully online, which primary school is going to be, because she doesn't want to send her child back to school. So we understand those concerns, but again, the ministry has said, and it's not that we have said, well, okay, yes, open up, but they have said, listen, it's time for us to open up.
It is mandatory from January 10th.
If they are approved. Because remember, they have to apply for approval first. And once they get the green light, then they can go back.
But most schools have developed a COVID protocol from March 2020. It's a matter of getting it reassessed, that it's prepared to reopen.
And that, I think, that is the misconception. Because we are saying most schools have developed a protocol or have a protocol in place. But what kind? Because a lot of these schools did not have what they needed to have to reopen.
Like what, wash basins? Or, okay.
Water issues in the area, depending on where they are. Cleaning supplies, you know, they can't afford those, they don't have those, they may only have just something small and they don't know where they're going to get a second one. So not all schools, depending on where you are, not all schools were fully prepared for reopening.
But wasn't there a national push at some point where a majority, if not all of the schools across the country had to be able to be compliant with what the regulations were for reopening?
Yeah, but see, and this is what we keep saying, that to say that all our schools are ready and you haven't gone. I have visited a lot of these schools in the rural areas and a lot of them were not ready. And they made, no, President, we are doing the best that we are begging. We found principals literally digging the drain to run pipes to be able to have, you know, these wash hand basins outside, those kinds of things. And so the rural areas are the ones that are most affected in terms of supplies, because one, the parents can't afford to provide some of these things, you know, and two, some of these areas lack water all year round. There are certain times of the year when some of these villages don't have no water because it's dry, and so the tank is empty, and so there's no water there. How do you deal with those kinds of situations? Where do they get water from? How do you have classes if you don't have water to clean, to wash hands? If you can't afford sanitizer? So these are some of the things that we have to look at in terms of looking at these rural areas, and how do we provide them with more supplies for them to be able to remain open if they can open.
So this is another tricky part of the reopening. Because when you talk about school expenses, being able to purchase supplies for cleaning, maintain your water, your electricity and whatnot, a lot of these funds tend to come from the fees that parents would typically pay.
Right.
Now, the economic challenges that that parents have faced has already made quite a few parents not pay their school fees, and now many are questioning what they should and shouldn't pay because they're not in school physically. What I understand from the conversation with the CEO is that they're asking for some leniency as parents go back to school. You know, if you can't pay your fees, if you can't have your uniform, if you can't provide, you know, what were the essentials before, still have the children come back. But this is simple math. If you can't afford to keep the school functioning, how do you do that? So what is the conversation with these managing authorities, with the managers of the schools themselves about how to get by without the source of income from fees? It's understandable that a lot of parents can't pay.
And that is why we are saying to say reopen and everybody must open is easy. You send them out and say you must open on this date. That's easy to do. It's for the administration of the schools now and these teachers now to have the headache of figuring out how they will get these supplies to keep the schools safe, to keep cleaning. And if you're not, as I said, if you're not getting your school fees, then you can't buy the supplies because parents can't pay the fees.
Now, and the 10% deduction already compounds that issue in terms of taking the money out of your own salary to do it.
Correct. And so that is why we say to the ministry that whenever it comes to a teacher and a teacher not doing what he or she should do, the hammer comes on that teacher. You are disciplined, you know, you are given a letter, all sorts of things happen to you in terms of the discipline process. But when it comes to a management not doing what it should be doing in terms of ensuring that the school is in order, you know, there's no leaky roof, the floor not caving, providing supplies. When they don't do that, what happens? How many times have you heard management being charged or being, you know, facing some kind of consequence for not doing its role as per the rules in terms of keeping its school in a certain manner? You don't hear those things, but you see the teacher, everybody crucify the teacher. Who will crucify the management for not being able to provide these supplies to these schools because parents can't pay fees? This is your school. You manage the school. How are you going to? And there are some managements who have, you know, given to their schools. We can't say no. That has happened.
Yes.
But let me ask a question.
When that is finished, what happens next?
For clarity, I just want to jump in there. How does it work? There's a church-state system in place, right, where the state provides the salaries, correct?
Right.
And then the management provides the funds necessary to administer the school.
Well,
the management comes about the money by people who attend church and pay their tithes. How does that work in terms of the management being able to find the funds to deal with the school?
For the most part, the schools run via the school fees and fundraising.
Okay.
And fundraising or fairs.
Correct.
Casual days.
For the most part.
Which none have been happening.
So you may not have a management who would say, for this year you're going to be getting $50,000, for example, and to do all of that you have to do for your school. The school, the fees does that, and as I said, the fundraising would do that. And from time to time, if the school really and truly cannot afford to do something, let's say, for example, hurricane come and your roof blow off. The school doesn't have that amount of money. So then the school might be able to put some, the church might put some, and then your management might put some to help you. But it's not that the management will cover all of that cost, and those are some of the concerns that people have, you know. If you are the manager, you have to be able to help more. And if you are depending on just the school to do all of these things for itself, then you are being unfair to your teachers and your administrators as well, because if I don't collect school fees, I can't go and force a parent to pay my school fees. But the pipe broke, or the water bill is due, and if I don't pay the water bill, I don't have any water. So how do you come in? What is your part in that? And so that is why we are saying maybe there are certain repairs that the management should do that that might not be for the school because of the limited funds that the school has, so that the school can focus on other things. So imagine now going back now without any school fees are very limited, because many principals will tell you if they get 60-70% of their school fees every year, they get a lot. A lot of children who would finish the entire standard 6
and
not pay no school fees, or might pay only $5 here, $10, and that's it. They just pay something, or they pay for the first year because they want the children to start school, so they would pay the infant one fees, and then after that you don't get any fees from them. So I mean,
collection
it's really
is a part
difficult.
of the problem, or getting behind parents to be able to meet this requirement or this expense is part of the problem.
Let me tell you from experience, I have had parents who you would have, let's say, a class of 29 students, and you may have 11, 12 of them who don't have their books. And so you go and you get the books from the school. Okay, principal, I would like to get these sets of books for my students. They don't have I'm going to pay you for them monthly, so you deduct from me monthly. And you would say to the parents, if you can pay $1 a month, shilling a week you pay until you pay for the book, so that they can take responsibility. If I have gotten $1 back, I've gotten a lot. So because you don't want to see your children sitting there without any books, the school can't be able to photocopy these things for you all the time. Then for me, it is easier for me to go and purchase the books for the children than just have them there and having them write, and by the time the class is over, they only finish halfway.
Or
it costs me,
share books,
but
and this is the reality pre-COVID time.
Right, exactly.
So and that's why I'm saying when I listen to the plans and I understand the costs associated, and I think that no one can, I mean, we have to be understanding that there are a lot of families that are struggling who may genuinely not be able to pay school fees or get uniforms. But then how do you function it? It doesn't just happen, miraculously.
Right.
So that's part of the consideration. The question I have though is, how many of these concerns and how involved is the union in consultation with the Ministry of Education in this plan for the hybrid rollout?
Well, again, we have shared with the ministry, and we keep saying to the ministry, and they will tell you this, we keep saying to them that these matters that have to deal with teachers' conditions of service and so forth, those are things that you come and you discuss with the union, and we come to agreement with as a union, because we are legally the agent for these teachers. If you want to go and discuss with GAMAS and with ATLAB and whoever the other groups are, that is fine, because they are your partners too. But when it comes to decision making for the teachers, you come to us. And for some reason, ministry change and people change, they can't seem to understand that concept. That you don't go to the other groups first to get buy-in from them, and then you come to us last and say, well, this is what we want to do, want your support.
Do you think it's being done deliberate though?
Listen.
Because if it's a habitual practice, notwithstanding administrations that come and go, perhaps it is being done intentionally to kind of keep the union at bay in terms of the level of influence or sway that it has.
You have to understand that ministry needs management. And so that's the first place they will go. Because if there's a strike and you want DAC to pay, management, you want DAC to pay. So if you want to do something and you know that I will support you, come to me first. And then they go to Marlene and say, well, you know what, I already spoke to Lena and Lena agrees. So Marlene will feel like, oh gosh, that's 2.1 no. So
which is exactly what I'm asking you, if it's being done intentionally.
You're fair in saying that in all this equation, we've not spoken, it's GAMAS, it's the managing authority, to hear how ready they feel or what their buy-in is at this point in time, because they do have such a crucial role to play. But let's move this further though, because that's going to be a crucial issue moving forward. And the question will be, what will be the level of decision making that schools can make about children returning, or what rules they can set. I think Isani brought up the safety issue. You talked about whether or not parents will be included. what rules will be enforced, what rules won't be enforced. All these things are being left up to schools to decide. But when it comes to enforcement, that's when it becomes an issue.
Right.
So who really has that decision making? If I say no parents on my compound, you will drop them off at the gate and you must pick them up at the requisite time, because you don't want children hanging around and playing.
Correct. And that's another issue. Because if a child is out at 2 o'clock, don't come for the child at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. You come for the child at 2, because you leave the child there, the child is going to be running around, and if the child gets sick, the teacher fault. So again,
and the teacher won't put them out on the street either.
So
at 2 o'clock.
Enforcement would have to be at the school level, at the local management level. But for the most part, as I am understanding it, some of these managements are putting in place things that will happen across the board for all of their schools. So for example, Anglican schools, all of them will be doing X. Catholic schools, all of them will be doing, so that it's across the board. It doesn't matter where you go, the same things apply. And that makes it easier if you're having the same rules across that, that apply at every school that you go, so that you can't say, oh, St. Joseph is doing this, but Ignatius is doing this. It's going to be Catholic schools in general. So if that is the case, then that is good. That is going to help a lot, because then the principals then wouldn't have to be worrying about how do I address these singular issues and how do I deal with certain parents and the others.
Now, we talked about teachers' concerns and parents' concerns. Let's bring this back home to the children. And I think, fundamentally, if there's one area you'll always agree on, is that the well-being of the child is important. There have been some schools that did get green light status, and maybe you have these reports that did reopen and can barely get half the population back. Not just physically, but even engaged in school. So we are facing a very concerning situation about dropouts, but also major educational gaps, because they're not doing the schoolwork. They go back 2 years later and the catch-up is monumental. How concerned, the plan, I believe, is to scale down to core subjects as we move into hybrid. What are the thoughts on how children will fare off when we get back to school in 2 weeks?
I think there's no doubt that when our students return to the classroom, it's not going to be the same. So I have a child who, let's say, was in Infant 1 2 years ago. So Infant 1, Infant 2, coming to be in Standard 1. I can't expect that child to be at a Standard 1 level, having been out for 2 years. Except
they
if
should be
the
reading
child,
by then.
Right. If the child had a very supportive parent, the parent was able to work with the child was disciplined in terms of, say, okay, you have to attend school every day, do your work every day, that kind of thing, then that child might be a little bit ahead of another child who didn't have that support. But we cannot expect that our children will be where they should be. And so our teachers would now have to then find ways and means of bridging, that gap. Especially when it comes to the foundational subjects, reading and math. How well are they? Do they know phonics? Can they sound out their words? Can they read? Can they write? Can they do math? Those simple little things. And so it is going to be frustrating, I'll tell you that. But we have to go back to wherever we have to go back, and
so
we have to try and bring them to where they should be.
Let me ask you a follow-up question, piggybacking from the one that Marlene just asked. I guess in the round, the question will be, how effective has the package and the hybrid system been? Because at the end of the day, when these kids go back, that will be the true measure of how well they have been in tune with the work that was being given to them.
And you know something?
Involvement.
You know something? A child getting a report card with 90s and 100s and whatever, that the parent did all of the work.
Yes.
Now the child going to school and you are seeing the true work of the child now. That will create some problems. Well, last year my child may get 90, may come in first, and now he get 60s. That is going to be an issue. So how do we deal with something like that? Because we have to be honest. These children who are working from home, a lot of times either the older sibling, the parent, the auntie, the uncle, somebody does the work for the child, because here, get it over with and send it in. That's the reality.
And then you have some left on their own, and then you have some that mastered Dr. Google.
Exactly.
Correct.
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
Correct.
The Google treatment is, to me, the most concerning. Because you could research anything in less than 5 minutes online, but when you actually put there to be able to cognitively use what you've learned and apply it, that becomes a challenge.
Right. Well, I mean, let me just give my personal opinion. I think it's a good thing if our children are learning to search properly and find accurate answers,
that is it.
especially in this misinformation age.
Okay.
So I think there's a plus to that, but that's just me speaking personally.
No, because if the child is taught how to do research, proper research, then of course it's an asset.
Yeah.
But if you just tell a child go and find information on this, and the child just goes and type in,
and how much are they schooled about what plagiarism is?
Yeah.
But this is another question I have about. Are there specific years that you imagine are going to need more dedicated attention? Because 2 years is a long time. There's some children that have never entered into a physical classroom. There's some who did 1.5 semester and then they've been out. Bam, they're going into standard 1. You have children that ended primary, went into high school, some that ended high school, went into sixth form. So when I look at it, I've tried to figure out which age is really going to need the most focus. I imagine the answer is all our priority, but there must be some learning years that are crucial.
Marlene, in February, I will complete 37 years of teaching. And I will tell you this, from my experience, once your infant 1, infant 2 students get that proper foundation and support, those children can sail through the other classes. So for me, infant 1, infant 2 should be the focus standard 1. Those,
so
for me, the foundational
ECD
infant 1
up to
standard 1.
Correct.
Yeah.
For me,
because that's where you learn to read. That's when you learn to spell.
Correct.
That's where you learn the foundations of math.
The formative years, right?
Right. So once you have learned how to sound out, for example, blend, you can break up any word and read that. It might take you some while to banana, but you get it. Once you have that level there and they have gotten that foundation, those children will be able to cope. The older ones, it will be easier because they would have gotten that foundation. So it would be easier for 4, 5, 6, for example, high school. It will be a bit easier for them to be able to cope than the younger ones. My perspective, I guess a high school teacher would tell you something different.
Yeah. But I'm glad we hear that. So other question, the standardized tests. We saw BJAT, PSC put on hold. CXCs did go through, but that's a regional agreement.
Right.
Do you think this is the end of standardized testing?
I hope so. I believe a lot of teachers would tell you they wish. Because we keep saying, and we have been saying this for quite some time now, that in our classrooms we are encouraged, we are appraised, we are, in terms of differentiated instruction. You have different levels in your class. You have to teach to those levels. You have to do your scaffolding and all of these things.
Yeah.
But yet to get one general exam, everybody must take that same exam, whether you can or you cannot.
Yeah.
That is not reflective of how I normally operate in my class or how you want me to operate in my class. And so a lot of our children, they are smart, they know their work, but they have these exam jitters and they don't do well. And so the exams are not always a true reflection of the child's potential. Yeah. And so the child is then treated unfairly because the child who might have been doing well all along, coming first every year, doing good on that day.
Yeah.
And so you can't go to the school where you want to go because the school reflects that. Yeah.
And so it doesn't show the child's true potential. So I believe a lot of teachers have that concern, and I'm sure a lot of them would be okay with us not having the exams anymore. But what do we do then? Because a lot of our students, assessment can be done in-house.
Okay.
But a lot of our students, our parents depend on scholarships because children do well on PSC and so on. They depend on those scholarships. CXCs depend on scholarships for sixth form. So what is going to be put in place for those students who are doing well, have done well, and parents who are looking forward to that assistance? Because giving me a scholarship and giving me $300 assistants, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And so where do we fit in the assistance that those parents who really need are looking forward to, because their children would have been doing well?
Well, you know what's interesting though, because even if anyone has seen a child go through primary school, from the time they hit standard 5, there's no more learning taking place. There's test drills. It's about performance and covering everything for people. You laugh because it's true, right? All schools get hyper focused on getting the children prepared, because unfortunately, everyone else, us on the outside, look at it and see it as a measure of the school.
Exactly.
Where bright children will
Yes.
do well no matter where they're placed, if they have good support.
It's partly the reason why, and I guess to an extent the media is responsible for this.
But parents push it too.
Yes, I'm saying
push it too,
we flock to, okay, who scored the highest on PSE?
Right, and you interview only those children and only those schools you go and you interview, because these are the...
Which has the most passes area?
But it's a tough mix, because children should be celebrated when they make achievements, but I don't know if it's the right measure.
Right, but we don't pay attention to, Isani and Marlene, we don't pay attention to the comparison.
Yeah.
Because if your school has 8 children in statistics taking the PSE, for example, or you have 15, I have 100 and something. A teacher who has 8 students, 11 to 15 students,
contact time with them,
as opposed to one who has 30, 35.
Yeah.
You can't compare that. There's no that you, and so I have been saying this to the ministry for some time now.
Yeah.
Listen, stop doing this, because you are measuring our private schools with our public schools at the same level. And I understand that in your view, you say, well, you know what? Same curriculum, we should be doing the same. But it is not the reality.
Yeah.
And so it's unfair to do that measurement. There has to be a different measure for these schools. Look at what I did last year. What I did this year.
Yeah.
Did I improve? By how much?
Well, I think
that's how you measure me.
I think there's no better story, and Isani, it was yours, was to look at this story from children doing PSE at Machal Kilhan, where they were up at what, 3 a.m.,
Right.
4 a.m., have breakfast, walk 2 hours, catch a bus, how long was that? Another long drive, and then sit the PSE,
and then come
versus
back.
a child in an urban setting.
It's a two-part
Correct.
process.
Yeah. Correct.
A child in an urban setting who gets up, mom and daddy prepare a great breakfast, and you drive to school comfortably in a couple minutes and sit and take your exam. That alone shows the disparity. So I'm glad I got that point on standardized testing. But, you know, I think we can all look at where we are today and realize that after the pandemic, or even as we move back to school, education will never be the same. These children have been taught how to learn online, how to maneuver stuff online, and we hear the conversations about the curriculum revamp.
Right.
How on board is the union to be able to collectively work out a new curriculum for today's era for our Belizean children?
Well, there is a committee, if you will, or a task force that the ministry has right now. We have 1 seat on that task force. And I've said to the minister, I said, it cannot be that we are looking at the interest of teachers. Of all of the persons or all of the groups on that committee, we represent the largest, if you will, persons, number of teachers, and we only have 1 seat. It can't be. But they are saying that when they get to the actual point of actually putting together, you know, the curriculum, and you know, then teachers are going to be more involved. I have said
this is in respect of the curriculum reform?
Correct. I have said to Dr. Zabane, you need to have more teachers involved in doing these things, because they are going to be the implementers of this change. And if you don't have buy-in from
How big is the task force?
I believe it was about maybe 8. Okay. Don't quote me correct, because 8, 11, something around there.
Okay.
Right?
Around 10.
So we have an alternate, and I said, you know what? We need an alternate to join those meetings. And so thankfully she was able to join the meeting, the last one. So we had both of them at that meeting. I hope it continues that way, because I think it's unfair. You are putting forth something that our teachers will have to be using, have to be implementing, and you barely have us involved. Not because you have 1 person there, it means that, oh, the union is involved or the teachers are involved. No, that's not how it works. And I say to them, we must work on meaningful consultation. Not just come and tell me I'm going to do this. Involve me from the beginning. Give me a say in how I'm going to prepare this. And so we look forward to the phase when we will actually have the teachers going in and writing these things, putting them together. We have asked that not just a curriculum, but we want for you all to prepare units of work for our teachers. And I have said this to the ministry I think when I was in administration for a bit, I said we should be having a bank of lesson plans because teachers have to write lesson plan every week. Take out the ones that are good that you find
and not during
that are
class
good.
time when they're teaching on the weekend.
Right. Pull those good lessons out and save them somewhere. Even if at your school, that if I want to have a very good sense lesson and I might not know how to go about doing this, sometimes you're short of ideas. I can go into my principal's office and I can flip through and I can find a science lesson that I can use. And I may be able to modify it a bit to suit my, but for the most part, it's there. We need to have that, and we don't have it, and I have been saying this for some years now. We said it again to the ministry, and I hope that they are going to listen, and they will work on it, because that makes life easier for the teacher in terms of planning, and you can spend more time preparing activities for your children to be meaningfully engaged in the classroom.
Let me challenge you on this
it's more efficient, and it becomes a repository for some of the great teacher ideas that have come out before.
Fair enough. But why does it have to go to the ministry? Why can't that be done at a school level, for instance?
But that's what I just said. I've said to the principals, you check lesson plans every week. So when you check them, pull out the good ones and save a bank for your staff. But the ministry may be the ones who are able to get these managements to share these things. Because, for example, my school might have one, but maybe a teacher from another school might have another one that I can use. And so I can have 50 of the same lesson that I can select from. But I might not be able to get from maybe Anglican or Methodist or the other schools, but the ministry can. So then the school might have one, but the ministry can have one where you have from across managements and you have choices.
Well, we are out of time, and we can always talk about school a lot more, but this is to get the union's reaction to the reopening of school on January 10th. Before you leave, Senator, I'm sure you know there are teachers and parents that are still hesitant. What would you say to them about this new era of education that we're moving into now?
I don't want to say what everyone has said, this is here to stay. But I want to say to parents that I understand them. I have a child who is asthmatic, very asthmatic, and so I too am concerned. But at the end of the day, I have to be able to give my child the best that I can give him or her. And if that means that the child has to go to school twice for the week and stay home for another 2 days, then I need to do that as a parent. I have to do my part to ensure that my child is vaccinated if possible. Take necessary precautions, give my child his or her sanitizer, alcohol wipes, whatever you have to help the child, to protect the child. We can't run away for too long. The concern is real, but you have to be able to trust that your child and you and the teacher can protect and take care of that child.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm sure we'll have further conversations as this process happens. So, of course, stay safe, and all the best for the new year.
And please let me wish my teachers a happy new year. Thank you so much for the wonderful work that you have been doing, and have a prosperous 2022.
All right. And we are going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll get you ready to close off the year with the psychotherapist Yvette Hernandez. She'll give us some tips as to how to get ourselves into the best mind frame. So please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky, and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Full-Tech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
The region of the Americas has a proud legacy of being a global leader when it comes to vaccination. Ours was the first region to eliminate smallpox, polio, rubella, congenital rubella syndrome, and measles. We also eliminated neonatal tetanus. Now, more than ever, vaccines play a vital role in keeping us healthy. As we move forward with vaccinating against COVID-19, let us not forget the importance of our routine immunizations to keep us protected against other diseases. Talk to your healthcare provider today to make sure you and your family are up to date with all your vaccines.
Vaccines bring us closer.
Bundle the fastest, most reliable, unlimited broadband in Belize with your prepaid or postpaid mobile plan or Netflix. You can bundle your broadband with your prepaid and enjoy 50% off all national calls, plus get SMS and data. Paid plans? Then bundle with any speed and pay only $25 extra monthly to enjoy unlimited smart-to-smart calls, plus 500 minutes, plus 6,300 megabytes of data. Stream unlimited HD movies and TV shows with our broadband, plus the Netflix add-on for only $30 monthly, and enjoy streaming on your laptop, TV, phone, or tablet. Visit a smart showroom near you to sign up or upgrade to the bundle that's right for you. Smart, bringing people together.
It's holiday season 2050, and the hottest trend is microplastics. For over a century, our ancestors have neglected the oceans. As a result, every food cycle on land and sea has been saturated with microplastics. And at Plastico, your trusted source for great meals, we pride ourselves on providing only the best in microplastics.
Just like Mom used to make it.
Wasn't your Plastico turkey delicious?
So tender.
It goes great with plastic soda.
You heard it, folks. Plastico turkey, your best and only option this Christmas.
We eat what we throw away. It all goes back into the oceans and then back to us as microplastics in everything we eat. Call for a strong single-use plastic ban in Belize. Our future depends on it.
It's almost lunchtime and Alice is getting hungry and forgot to bring cash. She remembers that eCash now has a geolocation feature in which she can easily view the eCash merchants near her, especially restaurants. Her co-workers also ask her to order food for them.
Chicken chow mein, please, and a Coke.
The merchant sends her the payment link. She taps confirm, and within a few minutes, her food is delivered. Alice then views her transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made. Then taps the split the bill button where she selects the unevenly option and moves the bar to the desired amount per person. The request is then sent to her friends. Her colleagues accept the request and are ready to enjoy their meals. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash make Alice's life a whole lot easier.
Whether you're at home, on the road, at work, or at school,
If you see news happening or suspect that something might be up, call or text the Channel 5 News Belize tip line at 672-5555. You don't have to give us your name, just give us the tip. That's 672-5555. Call or text us so we can check it out.
Conversation for today. While we talked about the plans for going back to school, what about your own personal plan for 2022? It is almost here. Well, we have with us Yvette Hernandez, who is a psychotherapist. She's in Orange Walk this morning, and she is going to help us through developing a plan by letting go things of the past, leaving 2021 behind and gearing up for the brand new year. Good morning, Yvette. How are you?
Good morning, Marlene. I'm doing well, thank you.
We gave you a tall order this morning, didn't we?
Yes.
All right, let's just take a backdrop for a bit and do some background. One of the interesting things about New Year's is that I always tell people it's literally any other day. Same 24 hours, same cycle, but mentally we don't feel that way. There's an end of, when the end of the year is coming, there's a level of reflection, introspection, and even anticipation for the future that starts to build inside of us. What's your take on how we prepare for the new year?
Marlene, I believe that when we approach the new year, many of us look at it the same way for example, we are starting a new day. Every morning we wake up and we have anticipation of what the day can bring, what we can accomplish during that day. And I believe it's the same thing with the new year, just that sometimes it's added pressure because there's so much we want to accomplish throughout the year. But it's the same thing like starting a new day. We get to start over new, we get to set our priorities in order and see what we can do throughout the year. So I think it's a good thing to do. It's not so good when it's so much pressure added to it.
Okay. Now, 2020 and 2021, it's been really challenging for many people, and I'd say most of us. We've all had challenges in some way or another, adjusting to change, losing jobs, losing income, losing freedoms. All of these things have just been building for over a year. And as we move into 2022, it's tough to be as optimistic because we just keep on getting burdened by these challenges. You have a presentation, or you have some thoughts on how to let go of some of these things. So please, by all means, help us learn these lessons.
Yes, Marlene, I've come up with like 5 tips on what can help us to prepare this New Year resolution for us that can help us to really achieve what we want to accomplish throughout the year. So the first one is definitely acknowledge where we are. Acknowledge, because if we don't acknowledge where we are or what's going on in our lives, or for example, you mentioned the word past hurts. For example, if we want to let go of past hurts or let go of things that happened in this past year, we really have to acknowledge. And what I notice is many people do not acknowledge things that negatively affected them in the past year. So that's definitely a big step. For example, if we acknowledge, you know what, this relationship is not serving me, or this job is not really fulfilling me, or whatever is going on, take stock. For example, that's the thing. Take stock where you are, because we can't move forward if we don't take stock, if we don't face up to reality. Many of us live in denial sometimes because just facing things that are going on in our life can be difficult. It can be uncomfortable. It can be painful. And so we don't take stock. We want to create this vision of how we want to go ahead in life, or what we want to accomplish for the new year, and we make a list of things. But then we want to do it dragging the things of the past, dragging the negativity from the past, dragging labels, stories that we tell ourselves that are not serving us. So first thing we have to do is to acknowledge where we are and what's not working for us.
I find there are two schools of thought with this when you look back on things that you don't like. There are those who are able to acknowledge. So when they write their list, they're like, you know, I have this bad habit, this particular thing that's just terrible. And they become resolved to say, this is who I am, I keep on seeing this problem. Then there are others who see the problems, but they never recognize the common denominator in all these problems is them. So they're kind of out of touch with their own involvement with this persistent challenge. Let's take a moment to differentiate. One, how do you move past the self-talk? Some may be telling themselves that they're just not going to make headway in the next year, and those who haven't quite figured out that they're the ones that need to change.
Right. So when I say acknowledge, there's a difference between acknowledge and dwelling on what's not working. Because some people might say, okay, I need to recognize where I am, but then you talk about it every day, you think about it all the time, and that doesn't serve us either. So the thing is to acknowledge is to take responsibility and realize what you have been doing, what's your part in it, what have you been doing in your life that's really not taking you to the place you want to go. And that takes a high level of responsibility and also awareness to really reach to the truth of it. Without that, it's very difficult to create a new vision for a better life.
Why is it
that keeps us back?
Why is it that for the most part, persons who set about coming up with a resolution and coming up with goals that they want to achieve either on a personal or professional level for the entire upcoming year seem to do so only one time for the year, as opposed to perhaps taking stock on a quarterly basis to see how far they are in terms of achieving the goals that they have set forward?
Many times, Isani, I think it's because the goals are not realistic, or the goals may be not in tune to what they want to achieve. They look outside and they look at the world, they look at other people, and then they create their vision based on what others may want, or based on what they think is a good acceptable vision in society. But what we need to do is to look at ourselves and realize what we want, what fits for us. And I think when we do that, that's when our goals are easier to accomplish. It's easier to accomplish our goals when they are unique for us, when they are good for us, when they're authentic. And what I see is many people get tripped up when it comes to what do I want? Okay, I want what my family would like for me, what I think would look good. Right? And that's where we get confused. But I'm pretty sure that if we base our vision and our goals on what's real for us, no matter what others say, that it's a very good possibility that we will accomplish those goals.
Nice. So step number one, take stock. So just like you go through your kitchen before you go shopping and see what you have and don't have, you'll do the same in your life.
Exactly. Very important. And that takes responsibility, taking stock of where you are, reality. And if you feel that you really can't realize and you need the help of someone, perhaps you can ask a friend, a relative that loves you enough to be honest with you and tell you what they have noticed that's not working in your life. Not to take all of their words, but just to consider, right?
I love that you said that, Because sometimes they see things we don't see, and it must be a trusted person, not somebody who wants to hurt you unnecessarily.
Definitely, because we all have blind spots. We all have blind spots and can use help. But like I said, it takes responsibility to own up to what's not been working in your life.
Okay, so that's step number one. Let's move on to step number two.
Step number two is to envision what you want. to visualize what kind of life you want for the coming year. Many people, when you ask them, what do you want? Automatically, the first thing they say is what they don't want. I don't want to be eating junk for the year. I don't want to keep on this weight. I don't want to be spending so much. I don't want to be fighting so much. Automatically, we think about that. But we need to gravitate more to what we want so that we can actually start to feel how it feels to eat cleaner, to be prosperous, to be more confident, to have a better relationship. And so I think envision it. We can't go somewhere if we don't know where we're going. We can't go somewhere if we don't have a map. So it's like doing a map, a blueprint of where you want to go. And what can help is to actually sit down and detail the quality of life you want, what you see yourself doing, how you would feel when you accomplish that. And that gets you closer to it instead of thinking, oh, this year I don't want to do all those things over again.
Yeah. Okay. Envision it. And I love what you're saying. Stop thinking about what you don't want in your life. Think about what you want to work on. And I guess that sets you off immediately with setting a goal. Because if I know what I want, I know what I have to work on.
Exactly. And I really do believe that where our focus goes, our energy follows.
That's right.
And so if we're always thinking about what we do not want in life, that's what will continue to show up in our lives.
Yeah. No, I'm a firm believer of that kind of manifestation, because you focus on the things that you will, in fact, give energy to, as you said, and you can miss so much more. So if we go through the process, you take stock, you decide, where you are at this moment, and then you define the things that you want to accomplish, whether in the immediate future or the full year ahead. How do you stay realistic? Because I guarantee you, if people get to this step, they'll say they want to eat healthier, they want to exercise more, they want to sleep more, they want to work harder, they want to make more money, they want to, build a new house, have a new child. They want everything all at once. And that can be, the recipe for failure.
Yes, I believe this. The secret to that is baby steps.
Yeah.
Appreciating every little step along the way. It's not an all or nothing. Many times we have this idea of all or nothing. I will definitely lose 50 pounds, or I will have my house perfectly made, or my relationship will be perfect, or it's all or nothing. This sense of perfectionism. Right? But I believe that the small steps, small achievement, the progress you have made, just to celebrate them and to really embrace what you have accomplished.
Yeah. So what's step number 3?
It's to identify the obstacles that can get in the way of you accomplishing your goals or your vision. Because many times there are obstacles, and we don't realize how these things are getting in the way of us accomplishing our dreams or goals or good life. For example, is fear a part of my life? Am I too fearful to take the plunge? Am I too fearful to take steps to have a better life? Many times it's doubt, right?
Yeah.
Guilt, things that hold us back. Many times I notice is guilt, fear, resentment, anger, things that we're still holding on. What happens to a lot is that we hold on to stories. We tell ourselves stories that don't serve us. For example, which Miss Smith was saying in the previous segment, she was saying about you have exam jitters. So let's say, for example, you are a student that you performed very well, but on exam day, you didn't perform so well. Many times people go on throughout their whole lives telling themselves stories based on something that was not true, right? I am not smart enough. I am not confident enough. I am not pretty enough. I am not liked. And we walk around with these stories that we tell ourselves. And if we would take the time and look at these stories closely, we would realize that they're not serving us. They are not serving us to have the quality of life that we want to have. And that's what we look at many times in the therapy room, at the beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves, the labels we put on ourselves that actually don't serve us if we want to to step into the new year and accomplish new things. We want to have this vision, these goals, but we want to drag along our stories that are not serving us, and those are obstacles.
It's interesting, right? Because we hate when people label us. We hate when society gives us a label or puts us in a box, but then we never think of what labels we assign to ourselves and refuse to let go of. You know, I really appreciate you saying that. So when you look at the obstacles, it's not just external obstacles. It may be, I may have been telling myself that I don't like change, or I will always be fearful of X, Y, and Z. While I need to think of my own thought process as a part of my obstacle.
Definitely. Or sometimes people say, but I've always been like that. I'm a mess.
Or that's just how I am.
That's how I am. I'm not good at this talking. I'm not good at interviews. I'm not good at math. I'm not good, you know, and we tell ourselves these things. And what I notice is many times these labels, yes, they're internal, but we hear it from other people and we take them and make them our truth. The people have let go. They don't even remember many times that they told us something that was hurtful or that identified us. But even if the person has forgotten, we continue seeing ourselves that way.
Yeah. We speak it into existence as well when we kind of hang up on the idea that this is how I'm perceived, so this is who I am or who I will become.
Definitely, definitely. So sometimes we don't even need other people criticizing or judging us because we do it to ourselves.
All right. So obstacles that even may include you and your own thought process. Let's move on to step 4.
Step 4 would be we need to take action. We just can't envision. Envisioning, visualizing, and planning is just half of the process. We need to take action. And many times action is scary. Taking action is scary. Making a decision is scary. Taking action can be uncomfortable. Sometimes it can be really painful.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't feel like taking action. We need to get up and do something. Many times to go to the gym, we don't feel like going to the gym. We don't feel like eating something healthier over something very unhealthy. But we need to get and take action. We need to do something.
Yeah, a lot of people get stuck in that analysis paralysis and they don't step forward. And you may not make the first step right, but at least you're moving in the direction you want to go.
Definitely, because they work together, the mind and the body. You just can't say, I will use my mind and I will think myself into prosperity. We need to get up and take action as well. So that's a very, very important step, because many people stay stuck in, like you say, thinking and analyzing and planning, but then we need to take action. And that takes courage, it takes responsibility. And you need to get moving.
All right. And the final step?
It's celebrating your accomplishments, tiny steps. Many times we are very compassionate with our friends, with our relatives, and we encourage them and we give them positive feedback and we tell them, you know, you can do it. You have done very well. Look how far you've come. Don't worry that you're still not there yet. But then when it comes to ourselves, we are very hard on ourselves. We beat up on ourselves because we have not accomplished the whole big picture. But if we start to look at little accomplishments, you know what? Maybe I'm not there yet where I want to be, but I am definitely not where I used to be. I have made some steps. I have made some improvement. And that's what we need to start to do. Be our own friend. Be more kind to ourselves, more compassionate.
But Yvette, oftentimes we are our harshest critics, right? Like we set a certain benchmark and we're saying, you know what, I have the potential to achieve this, but then despite the obstacles that come in your way along that particular course, when you get there, you may not have been able to achieve it at its optimal, the full 100%, but you're there nonetheless. But you look at what you set out and say, you know what, I could have made it better. And so because of that, you begin to criticize what you've achieved.
Definitely, definitely. And many times it comes from what we hear other people say as well. like maybe when we were growing up, like you know, your parents maybe could be hard with you, and then you in turn, you become hard with yourself, and you judge yourself. But then that's why I love what therapy can do in a person, because when we are in therapy, we challenge those beliefs. We help you to realize that you're hard on yourself, and why are you so hard on yourself, and will you let go of all those things that are keeping you back.
Yeah, I'm so glad you touched that. You know, as a therapist, one of the things I know that you are very helpful for is helping people achieve goals, helping them set them. Not that you do it for them or give them the plan, you make them do it for themselves. Tell me a bit about how you have seen the interest of persons in your area in mental health, and what do you think, or who do you think would benefit the most from seeing someone like you to be able to access services?
I believe that everybody can benefit from therapy. Every single person can benefit from therapy, because we all are human and we have things going on in our lives. I have definitely seen an increase in the urgent need for therapy since the pandemic. But what I would like to say is that yes, we can do plans. Yes, we can go into the new year and say, I want to accomplish these things. But based on my experience in the therapy room, what keeps us back the most from accomplishing our goals and living a fulfilled life are the stories that we tell ourselves, the beliefs about ourselves and about others that keep us back, and about the labels we place on ourselves. Many times people come and say, I want to have a good marriage, I want to have a good life, I want to earn more money, I want to be more confident. I generally just want to be happy. But then we have to look at the things that are keeping you back. What are you telling yourself? What's going on in your mind? Those are the things that we need to challenge, to look at, and in order for us to have a better life.
Yeah. All right. And how do people get in touch with you if they would like to learn more about these 5 steps?
I attend at the Northern Medical Plaza in Orange Walk, Monday to Saturday. Wednesdays I attend in Corzal at the Northern Medical Plaza as well. And I do sessions via Zoom as well. I've definitely seen an increase on that. Yeah. During the pandemic, I've done a lot of sessions. I do a lot on Zoom. But yes, I definitely believe that every single person can benefit from therapy. I've seen people's lives change, transform right before my eyes. And that's why I think I enjoy so much what I do, because I see the difference that it makes in people's lives. And the difference it has definitely made in my life as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I know this was really just on the surface, the tips that we can implement. And we appreciate you coming in to kind of just give us that focus as we all prepare to close off this year. All the best to you.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity, Marlene and Nisani. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up. So stay tuned.
As you reflect on love and life during the Christmas season, think about this. On average, almost 70 Belizean sons, brothers, and fathers crash and die on our highways every year. Unsafe drivers also take the lives of innocent passengers, pedestrians, and cyclists. Now our young men are dying in motorcycle crashes. The top 2 reasons by far for all these deaths are negligence and loss of control. Join the Department of Transport, the Police Department, and the Road Safety Project this Christmas season in showing that you care about your passengers and other vulnerable road users on the highways. Drive a little slower. Drive with more attention and focus on safety. Be prepared for more traffic checkpoints as we work to reduce speed and eliminate drunk driving, making our roadways safer. This Christmas season, give the gift of life and make Belize feel the love. A message from the Second Road Safety Project.
I am Glenda Brown. And I lost my husband, Henry Brown Sr., to COVID. He was a pastor and he loved the Lord. He got saved at age 16 and he did his best to walk with the Lord. When he was admitted, I said, well, it's good. He needed oxygen and that is going to move up and then, you know, he's going to be back. But it didn't happen that way. Eventually, he got intubated and sedated. And that was the part when we realized, you know, it is getting real worse. We don't know what is happening. We prayed with him. We spoke encouraging words, but we weren't getting response. We hope he heard, but I don't know. I eventually reached hospital unplanned. I spent an overnight in there Monday. That night, because I was tested positive, the doctor allowed me to go and see Henry. And so it was so good to be able to go to his ward. I get to rub his head. But he was saying he didn't think Henry was going to make it. There were much prayers going out on his behalf. But I knew God's will was what was going to be done. I think for me that did a lot. Even now, to could remember that I was able to, you know, touch him and see him those last moments, just the day before he passed. I just thank God for that opportunity. COVID is terrible once it comes to your home. It's something else because you have to quarantine. It's painful. All of a sudden, the connection within the family break down. When Henry passed, the children came and they came to my room. I have windows on both sides of the house, and so that was how we communicated. We spoke from there. Even the funeral arrangement and all these things had to be done. And I went out there to see the vehicle pass. I didn't know they would stop, but I'm glad they did. And so I made my way to the street side. I had COVID, so I knew I had to keep a certain distance from other people to look at that casket in that vehicle and know that Henry is in there. I watched online. It was so hard. I mean, this is Henry. He's gone. He's not going to be back again. Henry hadn't been vaccinated. He didn't want to be vaccinated. I was told that he said to someone in the hospital while he was there that if he gets out or when he gets out, he was going to get vaccinated. I know it's not the only prevention. Washing your hands, doing the other thing, taking your meds does help. So there's a number of things to do, and I encourage people to do all of them. God does protect us, but we are also not to put God to the test. And so I encourage people to do what needs to be done. There's a lot of things I missed him, just not having him coming home again. It's a journey ahead that I am trusting God to take me through. I know He will.
Morning, B.
Ready for full laybox?
Yes, man. Just grab the rope and I'm gonna put on the camera. My name is Josh Marin. I'm a commercial fisherman out of San Pedro and I've been fishing my whole life. We've been noticing that each and every time we go out, we have to find further grounds. So when I heard about the program, I found it as a very good business opportunity Other fishermen, when they go out, they tend to bring in everything and anything, and that's what me and my crew don't do. We practice responsible fishing.
Just show me how the app work, G.
Easy thing, bro. All we gotta do is we're gonna put in how much fish we catch right here. So there we get 15 pounds of champagne and 30 pounds of queens. We have punch that in, and that's all. Oh, one more thing.
And we're back.
We are back.
Yeah.
The conversation with respect to the reopening of schools on January 10th is going to be an ongoing one. I mean, in our own little ad break, we're still pondering a lot of what has been discussed.
Let me ask you as a parent, had put you on the spot. You've already made it clear you don't think your daughter's school will be reopening to face-to-face. But if it was, would you send your child back?
Well, again, I highlighted a very important concern earlier with respect to those who are vaccinated and those who are not.
Yeah.
All right? So perhaps the chance that I would take, to be perfectly honest, so my daughter's birthday is on the 19th of January, and we've agreed that she'll take her first shot then, because she'll be 12 years old, right?
Okay.
So with that in mind, I'd probably be open to it.
Okay.
More so because I'm also looking at the idea of, again, the importance of social interaction, right? You and I, when we were in primary school, there was no such thing as a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so we had the full experience of being able to go to school and you have your best friend and you do this, that, and the other together. And that was a healthy part of your development.
Yes.
Right? So I guess from that point of view, I am very, very open to that idea.
Yeah. We had dreams in here. You said send them back. What ages? 12 and up?
Yeah.
So listen, I think from the conversation we've had with the ministry, the conversation we've had with BNTU, and the conversation you have with just friends and family that are parents, this is something that affects all. And it is a tough spot. It's a time for tough decisions and a lot of compromise from parents, from schools, from the ministry. And I think there are some key elements there that still have to be sorted out. Clearly, finance is a part of it. And, you know, maybe it's one of the things that there has to be a sit-down, the school should have a sit-down with parents to have them understand that, you know, there's not just money that is gifted to schools to get the sanitizer to clean up between the children, or the hand soap, or the water, or all these other things that are needed. Perhaps there needs to be more pressure on the management as to where they'll get that from. And then just a general consideration. I was telling you that the school there doing a uniform exchange. So one of the key things is nobody can afford, a lot of people can't afford to get new uniforms. So they're bringing in uniforms that don't fit, and you pick one from what's brought in to kind of get people through this phase. So teachers are extremely
That's an excellent
innovative.
idea. That's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Never thought of it, but it's a commendable one.
And you have to be innovative through this time. So I think there are lots of things that people are trying to do, but we have to keep the well-being of our children in mind. And you're right. You know, when I look at the little ones, especially, your daughter is an adolescent, but the ones who never got a chance to make new friends, you know, who haven't been able to play one game of catch since they started school. And you know, sharing is no longer caring. Sharing is unhealthy. So there's so much that they've missed out on. I do hope that they can be able to build some of these experiences soon.
Now we transition from having that brief chit-chat on that initial conversation to the idea of resetting and starting anew for the new year, right? And how each of us should be able to set certain achievable goals going into the new calendar year, either by way of resolution or to say, you know what, these are the things that I need to put in place to be able to be a better me in the upcoming year. And as the psychotherapist mentioned, taking stock is important. But it shouldn't be one of those things where it's only on New Year's Day that we're taking stock. You should develop some kind of a timeline and be able to do so as frequent as possible to measure your achievement as you go along.
Yeah. Now, I think whether you agree or don't agree with people who set resolutions or goals, naturally, our thinking is different at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's just like at the end of the day where you start to wind down, the end of the year, you start to wind down from everything of this past year. And we're all in that kind of frame of mind as we jumpstart 2022. For me, there's nothing better than a brand new planner, like just a brand new planner with nothing written in it. And that's how I feel about the year ahead. I think of it as unused pages ready to be written on, with a schedule as to what you want to accomplish. And I'm so grateful for Yvette for coming in and being able to, or joining us, I should say, and giving us some of those really great tips. And I love more than anything else that she pushed us to also not just look at the external, which is what we started our eye-opener with, but also look internally. What labels are we giving ourselves? What stories are we telling ourselves? Maybe you set a goal in 2019 and it's 2022 and you can't achieve it. What are you telling yourself about how you can do it? And these are the things that can be helpful when you're putting forward new goals that you want to accomplish.
I've always admired, as you've mentioned, there's nothing like a new planner for you, right?
Yeah.
I've always admired people who are able to commit in writing what those goals are and who are able to actually live by that in order to achieve them. And that, I think, has to do with one's personality, right? I'm not the planner per se. I have a general idea of what I want to see done or what I want to get done over a period of time.
Yeah.
But I'm not like my dad who sits down and meticulously pens everything and then sees to it that it gets done. I'm more of a free thinker, and because of that, I'm able to enjoy my own experiences in terms of doing things.
Yeah, I think there's flexibility in both. I do know one thing, that when you commit things to paper, it's a different level of commitment in general. But it is, whatever works best for you. And we just hope that the conversation this morning gave you some tips as to how to properly define what you want to accomplish in the next year, next month, next 3 months, whatever is best for you. But that's all the time we have for this morning. If you'd like to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.